In 1996, director Gregory Hoblet released a courtroom thriller that contains one of the most celebrated endings in modern cinema. The twist at the end of Primal Fear goes like this. Aaron Stampler, played by Ed Norton, is quiet, he stutters, he looks terrified all the time, and it turns out he was performing the entire time. No split personality, no damaged altar boy, just a killer who fooled everyone. And for decades, audiences have walked away from this film believing they watched a story about a brilliant psychopath who fooled the system. They didn't. Instead, they watched a story that revolves around Martin Vale, Aaron's lawyer, played by Richard Gere. What makes Primal Fear so much more unsettling than a twist ending is what it reveals about the man who never saw it coming, and why he couldn't. Because Vale didn't miss the performance. He depended on it. His entire career runs on the assumption that the best performer wins. That persuasion is the point. That the courtroom isn't so much a truth machine as it is a stage. Aaron didn't break that assumption. Aaron confirmed it. Vale just happened to be sitting on the wrong side of his own system for the first time. Everyone remembers that final scene. Edward Norton, in the role that earned him a Golden Globe and an Academy Award nomination, smirking through the glass. The stutter dropping away. But if you rewatch Primal Fear with your attention locked on Richard Gere, on Vale, you'll see a completely different film. One where the most dangerous character isn't the one who lied. It's the one who built a life that made the lie possible. That performance-based justice, that's Primal Fear. Primal Fear is a film adapted from a novel written by William Deal. Martin Vale is a defense attorney who treats the legal system like his own personal media landscape. He picks cases for visibility. He shapes narratives for juries the way a director cuts a scene or edits timelines. He doesn't ask whether his clients are innocent. He asks whether their story can be spectacle enough to win. And he's exceptional at it. The film doesn't hide this. It opens with Vale performing for cameras outside a courthouse, grinning, controlled, fully aware of his own image. Performance-based justice holds this entire film together. In a system designed to determine the truth, the variable that actually decides outcomes is presentation. Who tells the better story? Who controls the room? Who makes the jury feel something at the right moment? Vale doesn't just operate inside this mechanism. He is this mechanism. The American courtroom rewards performance over fact, and he's so deep inside that logic that he can't recognize it when someone uses it against him. That's the thesis. Not that Aaron is a great liar, but that Vale built the room where lying works. When the film starts, Martin Vale is at the top. He's Chicago's most visible defense attorney. The press loves him, judges tolerate him, but he wins cases not by disproving charges, but by reframing them, giving juries a version of events that feels more compelling than the prosecution's. He doesn't deal in evidence, he deals in narrative. Then, Archbishop Rushman is murdered, brutally. And the only suspect is a 19-year-old former altar boy named Aaron Stampler, who's found running from the scene covered in blood. The city wants a conviction. The media wants a monster. The case is open and shut. Vale takes it immediately. Not because he believes Aaron is innocent, not because he's moved by the kid's fear, or his stutter, or his shaking hands. He takes it because the case is enormous. Because the cameras are already rolling. Because defending the indefensible is the ultimate stage, and Vale has never met a stage he didn't want to own. This is the decision that matters. Not Aaron's deception, but Vale's motivation. He doesn't enter this case seeking truth. To him, the truth is not what wins cases. Instead, he's seeking a way to create a narrative. And the film lets us watch that happen without ever flagging it as a problem. This is able to work because we have been trained to automatically root for defense attorneys in courtroom dramas. We've been taught that the lawyer who fights hardest is the hero. Primal Fear relies on that training. Performance-based justice doesn't just describe what Vale does, it describes what every character in the film does, and what the audience does while watching. This is where the film shows you how it works. The first proof is the initial meeting between Vale and Aaron. Watch that scene again. Aaron is trembling. His stutter is severe. He can barely make eye contact. And Vale, within seconds, begins assessing him not as a human being, but as a performance asset. Can this kid play sympathetic? Can this face sit in front of a jury and generate doubt? Vale doesn't ask Aaron what happened. He reads Aaron the way a casting director reads an audition. And because Aaron delivers exactly the kind of vulnerability that wins cases, Vale takes the role. The second proof is Roy. When Aaron's alternate personality emerges, violent, aggressive, profane, Vale doesn't recoil because it threatens his client's innocence. He recoils because it threatens his narrative. Roy is a problem, not because he's dangerous, but because he's off script. Vale has already built a story around a scared, devout boy who couldn't possibly have done this. Roy breaks that casting, and Vale's first instinct isn't to seek the truth about Aaron's psychology. It's to figure out how to manage this new information within the framework of the performance he's already building. And then there's the tape. When Vale discovers the video of Archbishop Rushman abusing Aaron and other boys, his reaction reveals everything. He's horrified, yes, but almost immediately the horror becomes fuel. The tape is a weapon. It shifts the story from did Aaron do it to what was done to Aaron. Vale doesn't stop to sit with what that abuse actually means. Instead, he looks at it and thinks, how does this play in front of a jury? What's it worth? How do I use it? Every one of these moments is the same mechanism. Truth arrives. Vale converts it into narrative. The courtroom never actually receives the truth. What it receives is Vale's edit. This is where it turns. Because up to this point, the film has allowed you to sit comfortably inside Vale's perspective. He's charismatic, he's sharp, he's fighting a system that wants to crush a stuttering teenager. You're on his side. You want him to win. But think about what you're actually rooting for. You're not rooting for Aaron's innocence. You never had enough information to believe in that. You're rooting for Vale's performance. You want the courtroom scene to land. You want Laura Linney's Janet Venable outmaneuvered, even though she's the one actually trying to prove what happened. You want the jury swayed. You're watching the legal system function exactly the way Vale designed it to function, as theater, and you're enjoying it. Primal Fear puts you in the jury box, and just like the jury, you're not evaluating evidence. You're evaluating delivery, you're responding to rhythm, to confidence, to the emotional shape of the argument. You're doing exactly what performance-based justice requires an audience to do. Mistake conviction for truth. The film doesn't just depict this mechanism, it activates it. You are inside the system while you watch. And the twist at the end doesn't just reveal Aaron, it reveals you. The only reason that twist works, the only reason it lands at all, is because you trusted the same thing Vale did. You bought the performance. Not because you're gullible, because you prefer a good story to an ugly truth. Same as any jury, same as Vale. It shows you that you were never watching a trial. You were watching a show, and you picked a side based on who performed better, not who was right. Primal Fear arrived in 1996, less than a year after the O.J. Simpson verdict split the country in half. That trial had already done something irreversible to the American public's understanding of courtrooms. It made the performance visible. Johnny Cochran and the Dream Team showed millions of people what happens when lawyers treat a murder case like a television event. Jury selection became casting. Cross-examination became content. The verdict felt less like a legal conclusion and more like a season finale. Gregory Hoblet's film walked directly into that cultural wound. Primal Fear didn't need to explain performance-based justice to its audience. The audience had just lived through it. The film simply dramatized what everyone had already felt but couldn't quite articulate. That the courtroom had become a stage, and that the best actor in the room held more power than the best evidence. And that's not background. Primal Fear isn't a timeless legal thriller. It's not A Few Good Men, where the system ultimately works and the truth comes out on the stand. It's a 1996 legal thriller. It belongs to the exact moment when America started watching its justice system the way it watches entertainment, and couldn't stop. If this mechanism feels familiar, It should. We built an entire video around the version of it when we broke down Christopher Nolan's Memento. How memory gets edited in real time. How the stories we construct about the past become more real than what actually happened. Performance-based justice works the same way. The performance doesn't just obscure the truth. Given enough repetition, enough conviction, enough emotional resonance, the performance replaces it. This is where Primal Fear becomes more than just a courtroom drama. Performance-based justice doesn't stay in the courtroom. It's the mechanism underneath every system that confuses presentation with substance. Job interviews, political campaigns, pitch meetings, sentencing hearings. Anywhere a decision maker evaluates a person based on how that person makes them feel rather than what the person actually did. Think about plea deals. Over 90% of criminal cases in the United States never reach trial. They're resolved through negotiation, which means the outcome depends almost entirely on who tells the more convincing story in a closed room. Not on evidence, not on witness testimony, on narrative leverage, on performance. The system Vale thrives in isn't a flaw in the design. It is the design. Now bring it closer. Think about the last time you believed someone, really believed them, and later found out you were wrong. Not because they had better facts, because they had a better delivery, a steadier voice, the right pause before the right word. You weren't evaluating truth, you were evaluating performance. And the gap between those two things is where every fraud and every con and every false conviction lives. Primal Fear doesn't ask you to feel bad about that. It asks you to notice it. To see that Martin Vale's skill set, which is reading a room, constructing a narrative, controlling emotional rhythm, isn't unique to lawyers. It's the skill set the modern world rewards most. And the people who are best at it are the ones you'll never catch. Not because they're smarter, because you're not even looking for it. Because performance, when it's good enough, doesn't look like performance. It looks like the truth. The final scene of Primal Fear isn't really about Aaron's reveal. Watch Richard Gere's face. Watch the exact moment Vale understands. There's no anger, no dramatic collapse, just a slow, quiet realization that everything he believed about this case, about his own skill, his own instincts, his own place in the system, was wrong. But here's what makes it devastating. Vale doesn't realize he was fooled by a better liar. He realizes he was fooled by a better version of himself. Aaron did exactly what Vale does every day. He read the room, he identified what his audience needed to believe, he constructed a character, the stuttering kid, the shaking hands, the Bible verses, and he committed to it completely. Vale's identity doesn't collapse because he lost. It collapses because he won. And winning is what exposed him. He got Aaron acquitted. He performed brilliantly. The system worked exactly the way he always said it worked. And the result was the murderer walked free. The logic Vale built his life on didn't fail. It succeeded. That's the horror. The machine worked perfectly. It just happened to work for someone else this time. And he can't even call it cheating. Aaron followed every rule Vale wrote. That's what performance-based justice actually looks like when you strip away the charm and the courtroom drama and the clever dialogue. A system that can't tell the difference between truth and talent, between someone who's guilty and someone who just told a worse story. Vale walks out of that visiting room and the film ends. There's no speech, no redemption, no lesson learned. Just the man standing in a hallway understanding, maybe for the first time, that the system he mastered was never his to begin with. It actually belongs to whoever performs best. And today, it wasn't him. Nothing broke. You just finally saw how it worked. And sometimes in the back of your head, if you're honest, you already knew. You just liked the version where you didn't. Every system that rewards presentation over proof has an Aaron stamper inside of it. Most of them never get caught. Some of them are running the room. And the question Primal Fear leaves you with isn't whether the justice system is broken, it's whether you'd even recognize the performance if you saw it again. We've been looking at how films expose the mechanisms hiding inside systems we trust. Next time, the performance moves somewhere you can't cross-examine it. We're looking at Fight Club, where the person being performed for doesn't just believe it, they need to. If you enjoyed this breakdown of Primal Fear, please consider subscribing and supporting our growing channel. Until next time, this is the Prism, Thank you for watching, and please take care of yourself.